Secret of Urbanization by myself. With the urbanization on the rise, there are many new arising problems. As seen in the graph from our world and data, from the years 1500 to 1800, the rates of urbanization of Japan, the United States, China, the world, and India were consistent. Then, in the mid-1850s to 1900, the United States has a huge jump in urbanization, while the other countries start having steady increases. By the year 2016, all the countries have risen by at least 30% in total population living in urban areas. This chart, taken from Nature's Sustainability, a journal that publishes research on sustainability from the natural and social sciences, depicts the change in natural, engineered, social, and institutional infrastructure. As seen in the graph, as we move from rural to urban areas, the natural and social infrastructure start to get lower and lower, while the engineered and institutional infrastructure start to rise. This means we lose the natural aspects of the world and move to more man-made things like large buildings. The increase of urbanization also creates problems like the loss of biodiversity, increase in population, pollution, and change of the climate. As a graduate and teacher at Harvard University, Julia Watson stated, and then to deal with flooding in a completely other way, the Tofinu Drought has developed the largest lake city in Africa. As seen in the picture taken from Julia Watson's TED Talk video, the Tofinu tribe built over the lake instead of destroying the lake and making their city. There are ways we can build cities by not destroying the environment. We need to learn how to build around the environment instead of building on top of it. With recent spikes in urbanization has come the loss of biodiversity. Slowly but surely we are killing species and we do not even realize it. This picture, taken from bioninja.au, shows the negative effects brought about by the addition of an invasive species in new environments. As shown in the graphic, the addition of the fox in this ecosystem, the quail loses its food source, causing the population of the quails to decline. Humans do not realize that moving species into another ecosystem negatively affects that ecosystem. Although one species may be saved from harm, we end up hurting another species. Not only do we hurt all other species, but we also create massive disruptions in the food chain. Ecosystems are not only losing biodiversity, but also the habitats in those ecosystems are being destroyed. Things like fragmentation and the dumping of trash are destroying these habitats. Fragmentation, which happens when parts of a habitat are destroyed, leaving behind smaller unconnected areas, is a huge problem. We're only destroying the land for the needs of us, rather than caring for the animals that live in it. Another huge problem is pollution. Pollution has always been a big problem, but in recent years, it's become even more of a problem. With the spike of urbanization, it is becoming worse. There are many types of pollution, but some of the majorly affected include water and air pollution. These are two very important aspects of human lives. With water pollution, it will be hard to find good drinking sources for humans. And with air pollution, it will be harder to breathe. Air pollution is becoming a large problem everywhere in the world, as it is seen in urban cities in the image behind me. As quoted from Richard Vail Academy, a registered non-profit research and training institution, in cities, there is a high concentration of vehicles and industries, which release harmful pollutants into the air. These pollutants can cause a range of health problems, including respiratory infections, heart disease, and cancer. This shows why cities have higher pollution rates and why the continuation of urbanization is only going to make things worse. One largely talked about topic in the recent years is climate change. This is evidently occurring and urbanization is just speeding up the process. As seen in the graph on the right from our world and data, from the years 1960 to 2011, the increase in population in the urban area is similar to the increases in temperature difference as seen on the graph on the left from nature.com. This correlation is not coincidental. As stated in the article, Contribution of Urbanization to Warming in China from Nature.com. Clearly, the effects of urbanization have considerably exacerbated the warming experienced by the large majority of the Chinese population in comparison with the warming that would have experienced as a result of external forcing alone. It could be argued that urbanization is not a big deal because animals can just evolve. As the Associate Director for Communications and Public Affairs at Whitehead University, Eric Bender, stated, songbirds in Europe and owls in Argentina show evidence of natural selection in genes associated with cognition. Even though it does happen, with the rate that we are urbanizing, these animals will have to constantly evolve just to survive. It could also be argued that we can just use electric cars to slow down and hopefully fix the problem of climate change, but it's too hard to get everyone to switch cars due to the price and the availability of them. Urbanization is not something that should be stopped, but rather slowed down. We should also be more cautious with urbanization. There are many ways we can urbanize the world without destroying what is already in it. We need to stop and think about the effects of urbanization before we continue to urbanize at the current rates.
6 minutes, 36 seconds. So, Tanner, I'm not clear. Can you go back to your first slide? I thought your thesis was urbanization needs to occur using nature, but then you just started talking about urbanization. So, like this, you didn't say why it went up, but that's the Industrial Revolution. That's factories, So then from there, keep going on with your slides. Then you talked about the Tofanu, okay? And that's where I thought you were heading. And then you just started talking about urbanization and its effects. So I'm not sure if you have, I'm not sure what you were trying to do in this, to be honest, but I think you need to work on getting some evidence that urbanization will be much better for the environment and biodiversity if we use nature as a, I don't know, use nature and be to designs of nature so that we impact it less instead of like we were doing in during the Industrial Revolution. Does that make sense to you? Okay. Because I'm just not sure. You talked about urbanization, all its down parts, but I'm not sure if you're making the argument. I thought you were making the argument to be you have to use ancient wisdom in our design of urban areas. I mean, even if you talked about like sidewalks and bike systems and things like that, going back in time instead of forward in time, because of climate change. So how can you address climate change? Well, not everybody can get an electric car, but people maybe could bike if there were bike paths. So in Miller, there's a book called section called Sustainable Cities. I think we did it at the very beginning. Look at that chapter, and you'll get ideas. Okay. Okay. So Tate, can you get out of 110?